First of all, before we begin, as of making this video, this whole system is in beta. This is just the first public iteration of this whole bracket system. And I want to say that I find it absurd that so many players, people, and creators post the two graphics that we will show off in this video from the article about this whole thing and claim that the brackets are too vague. They were literally just PowerPoint slides from the video where Gavin talked in depth about everything that isn't on these slides, yet most people seem to think that these pictures should be self-explanatory, saying that they should only include in-depth graphics, as most people only look at the pictures in articles. To that I say that you are deliberately going out of your way to not understand this. You go out of your way to find the information, the article, and then misunderstand it on purpose by looking at just, like I said, PowerPoint slides. The article is found at the same place that you would go for the ban list, any updates about new expansions coming, card previews, etc. It's all centralized at the same website where you would find everything else, new secret layers, etc. It's written in very approachable, easy to read language. It's like 1.5 pages of text. The whole article is shorter than my notes for this video. It's not much. Anyways, in this video I will be going over the power bracket system super quick and simple, debunking a lot of the misunderstandings, but also point out some flaws. By that I mean brackets, the game changer list, and some flaws exposed in the player base as well. It's also important to remember that this is just a power level calculator, something that's existed forever, at least a decade at this point. This is just one made up by Wizards of the Coasts. If your playgroup is okay with what you're playing and the power of your deck already, this does not affect anything that you have going on at all. It's just that instead of 10 power levels, it's now 5, that's it. You will also not go to jail for playing a bracket 3 against a pot of 2s. It's not that serious. Bracket tiers, as you can see on the screen, there are 5 tiers. A lot of people get hung up on the game changer cards. We'll get into those, but for now let's talk about the brackets and the philosophy of every bracket. Tier 1, the first one here, Exhibition. This is the joke deck tier. This is the decks that don't at all really try to win. The theme is simply things like all the art is by the same artists, every creature has red hair, stuff that's just for fun. Like, it's basically a shit post. There's no synergy mechanically going on, just a story or a goofy concept basically. Then tier 2, called Core, that is the modern day pre-con level. Expect synergy between the cards here, some kind of game plan of sorts. The commander is picked out because you have a plan most likely, but also this deck would probably have some pet cards, your favorite cards basically, even though they might not be optimized for the synergy. Playing for fun and not necessarily winning is also a big part of this bracket. Tier 3, which is where most people end up after getting a precon and swapping out some stuff or focusing the deck, because this is the upgraded tier, an upgraded precon pretty much. You will see more fine-tuned synergies. A precon is often built on somewhat open-ended mechanics or alternate commanders that do similar things but in a slightly different direction. In this tier you'll find a more focused and clear direction with that synergy. Tier 4, called Optimize, and now we're getting into the part of this bracket where people are getting confused, it seems, and I can get why from just the graphics, but again, remember the graphics were just a PowerPoint where more was explained. So let's just get into it. This is high power level, min-max decks to a degree. We're talking about combos, tribals with the best of support cards, fast ramp, card draw, synergy perfection, where you have like a perfected Dragon, a Krankle, a Toxtril, Edgar Markovs, or Slivers, and more like that. Synergies and game plans that would give you wins in pretty much any casual table. Decks that allows you to come back if you get denied a win con. Decks that would also allow you to kind of protect your board easier and more often. We're also going to come back to this a little bit after talking about the next tier. And the next tier is CEDH. Tier 5. This is the upper echelon of power levels when it comes to Commander. CEDH means competitive Commander. This is the tier where tribals and themes are too slow, where building a board state is too slow, and by that I mean filling your boards with a bunch of vampires because you have a vampire commander, so it themes well together, they build each other up. Krenko and goblins, for example, that is too slow in this tier to actually compete. Your commander needs to have a built-in plan by itself. You need to have something in the command zone that enables your win con for the most part. part. Expect infinite combos, potential turn 1 win attempts. Not as much anymore, but you still have Rogsai, which is a commander pairing that definitely can present turn 1 win cons. Free counterspells is a big deal in CEDH. Instant speed win con on top of someone else trying to resolve their instant speed win con. A metagame so fine-tuned that 30 lands in a deck is too much and a waste of card slots. Winning the game here is the thing you care about. This is very much like putting these in a box. It's not exactly what CEDH is as a whole, but this is just, I'm trying to explain it as simple as possible to lessen some of the confusion going around on Blue Sky, for example, which I've seen. And there was someone in the CEDH UK Discord bringing up a very good point that what about fringe CEDH decks? Commanders that aren't necessarily tier 1, that do weird stuff that you won't necessarily think of. I would say that that kind of then depends on the pilot. The pilot is a big part of CEDH. If you have someone who's really talented at reading threat assessment, the board state, the players, the commanders, the players are playing and what they're setting up for, what kind of win cons, what do you have as a resource in your deck to handle that? And fringe and CEDH is something that's hard to define really. But I think when it comes to these brackets, this is more a philosophy than it is a hard set rule of what power level your deck is. If you're playing fringe CEDH, if your mindset with the deck is I'm going to compete with this deck and I want to beat competitive decks and competitive players, then yes, that's a CEDH deck, even though the bracket system might say that it's a 4. This is a bracket system meant to help players have the rule 0 conversation, which is not really a thing in CEDH because you're all going in being like, whatever I'm playing to stop you from winning. I want to win and I want you to lose. Yes, there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of rumors and myths about what CEDH is. So if you want to learn what CEDH actually is and how absolutely awesome the community is, I suggest joining the CEDH UK Discord server. And I also suggest you watch my video on what CEDH actually is, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding about what CEDH is. It's just very high power commander. That's all it is. I also want to point out real quick at the end of this, you are not toxic. Your deck is not toxic, no matter what bracket your deck falls into, as long as you actually communicate to your opponents what bracket your deck is in. Obviously, like I said, if you're going into a CEDH tournament, no one expects you to not try to win as quick as possible or to slow them down or whatever. That's like the one exception. Your deck turned out to be a 3 or maybe a 4, no one cares. It's absolutely fine. You're fine, your deck is fine. Good job. Keep playing your deck as long as your opponent don't mind playing against it. That changes nothing. It changes nothing. Like I said before, this is a power level calculator, something that's been around forever. This is just one made by Wizards of the Coast. This is not changing the rules of Commander. This is just helping players do the rule 0 conversation. And it's also a work in progress. Again, I want to say this is the first iteration shown off to us. This list will for sure grow and change with time. This is also not a ban list. This is not a list of cards that you cannot play in casual. Bracket 1 is not the only casual bracket. Every bracket except for 5 is casual. And some people play CEDH casually as well. Like they will sit at the kitchen table and they have CEDH decks. They will crack a beer and play Commander, but with CEDH decks. That's just a mindset for the most part. There is nothing on this list that should make you want to take your deck apart if your pod was already okay with those cards. This is just a list of cards that are considered high powered and cards that elevate gameplay plans by themselves. Some cards do have high power, that's just how it is in every trading card game. This is just a start that helps new players see these cards, potentially helping them understand what cards to look out for in the rule 0 conversation. A list that would help people not get pub stomped when they see, for example, the multicolors there are just legendaries, so that if they see those in the command zone and they know that, hey, these are game changer cards, and if they have game changer cards in the command zone, maybe I should ask them, hey, what power level is your deck and what is your game plan? When do you plan to win? What round do you plan to win at, etc. I'm not going to go over every card on this list, but there is a lot of cards here I think make tons of sense to be on here. Jin Gitaxis I think is on there just because it's toxic and unfun synergy. I think the same is true for Turgrid. Turgid, which I've played against before, and it's absolutely unfun to play against a Turgid in casual. It's not on there because of its power level, but because of how restrictive it is. Same with Grand Arbiter Augustine under the multicolored one. It's just unfun. For CEDH players and higher power level players, remember that a lot of this is just to help lower power level players who enjoy the low power level look out and be wary of what cards could stop them from having fun while they're playing those kind of decks. There is, however, a few cards I would like to add to this list or see added to this list in the future. Those would be wheel effects, like Windfall, Wheel of Fortune, Magnus of the Wheel, Wheel of Misfortune, etc. These are cards that make people discard their hand and then draw a new hand. These are cards that would be game changers because they could definitely change a game. If you can get this down on turn 2 or turn 1 even, you can completely change how the game would go for everyone at the table, as you basically force a mulligan. Or you could fix a mulligan if you have a bad hand. And since the goal of this list is to showcase high power cards that can change games by themselves, I think that's an obvious include. There are also a few commanders I'd include on this list as well, and some common CEDH commanders as well that I think should be on here to help people not get pub stomped. We're talking commanders like Tymna, Thrasios, Crom, Tivit, Najeela, Krark, and Rograk. Commanders that if you see them, you should be a little bit concerned if it's supposed to be a strictly casual pod. These are pieces of power in the command zone that if I see them played at a casual table, I would 100% ask them what power level their deck is and what their deck is doing. These are cards that when you see them, you should expect high power level actions. And obviously, if you have that rule 0 conversation and the pilot of those decks say that, no, it's just a meme deck, it's only for the colors or something, or it's no, I wanted some of the most powerful commanders and then tried to make the least powerful deck I could, something like that, that should probably be fine then. Unless they then go on a pub stomp, which this whole thing is not going to stop liars, sadly. That's just not possible. In conclusion, nothing about the rules of Commander have changed. These brackets are not put in place to stop you from having fun. This is just a power level generator made by Wizards of the Coast. It will change with time for sure, and you can still play whatever you've been playing. You can choose to ignore this completely if you want to, and you'd be fine. In the UK CEDH Discord, someone made a great point that LGSs can now host tournaments for casual Commander and set a cutoff point at what bracket they want it to be. Something that has potential to stop pub stomping, or people going in with CEDH decks in casual, having less people ruin the image of CEDH, which I think is something that would be very nice. This also brings up another point. As a CEDH enjoyer, although I have 5 decks in almost all of the brackets and 2 in CEDH bracket, it is incredible to see that Wizards of the Coast almost immediately after taking over, they've sat down and they've worked on this, and on the first iteration they recognize CEDH. That's amazing to me. It's finally recognized now. But the term CEDH have a lot of people angry right out of the gate, and I think a lot of that is because of how much of a bad rep it has from people misunderstanding it and pub stompers and what they have done before. CEDH might be better off if it got renamed to Tournament Commander, is something I've seen people say on social media, which there's been discussions about that for ages, but I think now maybe Wizards could do that, as then it would ring a bell for people in casual pods where tournament shouldn't be a part of the game plan at all. But this could also be the one thing that solidifies CEDH and lets people see what it actually is and what it's about. This could get people into the community, which would be so awesome. It's one of the most welcoming communities you will ever see, especially here in the UK. The CEDH UK Discord is amazing. The people there are hilarious. It's definitely full of hilarious people who will welcome you into the community. There are spell table games going there all the time. Incredible people who are really good at playing Commander, and I hope to see more people come into the community soon. At the end, I would like to plug my channel that you're watching this on, but whenever we reach 1,000 subscribers, at the moment we're at 857, but when we reach 1,000, I will be doing a live stream opening a Scourge booster box I bought in Japan last year. I'm going to Japan again this year, and it would be very cool to open it before I went, and maybe I'll get a new box when I go there this time to have another milestone coming up. With that, let me know in the comments what you think about the new bracket system, if you're going to ignore it, or if you're going to follow this and you're excited to see where this bracket system will go, how the game changers list will evolve, and I'll see you guys in the next video.